Just say to yourself, what do you think was the Buddha's crucial discovery? Yeah? Yeah, you got it? Okay? Okay. So he tells us what it is. So it's an easy one. It's called his victory verses. And he starts off, through many births have I wandered on in samsara. Samsara is the onward going onwards. Seeking but not finding the builder of this house. Painful is repeated birth. Seeking the builder of this house. Yeah. You can take that as life after life, samsara, you die and you get reborn. But you can take it day by day. Every day you wake up, here I am again. Or not me again. One of the two. And there's another day, and another day. It's constant samsara. O house builder, you are seen. You will not build this house again. All your rafters are broken, and your ridgepole is shattered. My mind has attained the unconditioned. I have reached the end of craving. So he's talking about the self, isn't he? This house. He talks about the house. So this is the body, the heart, the mind. And he's always presuming he is that. But he's found this real kernel point from which everything begins, the sense of self. So this sense of self, I'll give you a couple of metaphors. When we're babies, so I'm told, I can't remember, but the first 4 months, it seems, for the experience is a catastrophe of information, and it's two-dimensional. So we're hearing, we're seeing, we're just in the midst of this awesome stuff. And then around about 4 months, we start pushing the carer out, your mum, right? She becomes an object, pushing. That's why you see kids reaching for rattles and all that sort of stuff. So they're creating the 3D world until around about the age of 3, they're very clear that that's the outside world and this is me. A little sense of self, yeah? And they own things, don't they? I used to play with my nephews and nieces, steal their toys, they get really upset. So this is mine, see? So they have a very clear sense of self. What we are doing is exactly the same. We're pushing the inner world out to make it an object that we can see. So we're creating another dimension, a mental dimension inside us. Yeah? That separation between the inner world and the outer world is, of course, a fiction, because the one is feeding into the other. It's just us that we've created. We know when we're in the mind thinking about something, and we know we're in the world thinking loudly about something, talking about something. Everything we're experiencing now is being created in the mind and projected outwards. But we don't experience that, do we? We experience everything out there as real. But it's the wonder of the mind, the cleverness of it. Yeah. So that's the first thing. It gives us an idea as to what we're doing. Of course, what we begin to discover is what is it that behind all this outward and outward movement, what's sitting in there? What's sitting in the middle of all that? Right? That's the discovery. The second metaphor would be Narcissus. So normally this is, of course, about pride and self-pride. So Narcissus, this beautiful young man, he looks into a pool and he falls in love with what he sees. So what does he do? He embraces it and he drowns, right? Now, water in mythology is usually to do with creativity. So that's what this Buddha nature is doing. It's coming into the world of the mind and catching its reflection. That's the sense of self. And in that sense of self is looking into the mind, and the mind is very attractive because it's offering pleasure. It's offering beautiful, it's offering beauty, it's offering nature, art, see? So there's a falling. Every morning you wake up, that's happening, right? In fact, it's happening virtually continuously throughout the day. Every time you lose yourself in something, and then you come back to yourself, you're back at the point of the awakening into the delusion of a self. Yeah? Now we have to presume that Narcissus didn't actually drown, right? He got down to the bottom and he thought, what the hell is this about? So he picked himself up and he swims to the top and he gets back on the bank. And that's what you're doing every time you get into that inner observer, the inner feeler. You've pulled yourself out, sitting on the bank, and you're watching stuff coming up in the mind. But even so, there is still the sense of self. There's still that reflection coming back. Okay? At that point, when you are still within yourself and you're seeing thoughts and images and moods, emotions, sensations as something other happening there, yeah? You get that very strong sense of being the self, strong sense of being the feeler, right? Now, this is difficult for beginners, right? But I'll give you an idea. So you get that very strong sense of being that feeler, that observer, right? So now you move towards that feeling, you move towards that particular sensation. Where is that sense of self being manufactured? There's your question. Yeah? And when that snaps, that's when you've seen the house builder through many verses, finding the builder of this house. Oh, house builder, I've seen you. We've almost seen it, but we can't break from it. We've not seen it enough to create such a distance, such a separation, that this intuitive awareness knows itself as completely other than everything it experienced. Many of you will have come across the word emptiness. You know, the Mahayana love it. The emptiness of empty. The philosophy of emptiness becomes so entwined and clever that they have to end up saying the emptiness of emptiness, right? Emptiness is also used in the Theravada scriptures, the original Theravada scriptures. When we say original, that's, a bit like that. So, because they've been worked on, But there are two words that he uses for this, right? One is anatta, not self, but the other one is shunya, which means empty. So what is it that this intuitive awareness becomes empty? What does it mean, empty? It becomes empty of everything that you experience. It's empty of thoughts and opinions. It's empty of emotions and moods. It's empty of feelings and sensations. Somebody said to Sariputta, you say that Nibbana is the highest bliss, the most beautiful, perfect state that you can be in. But what about emotions? Oh, he says, it's the absence of emotions, which is the bliss of Nibbana. And that's very confusing for us. But when you're in that state of the observer, very clearly in the state of the observer, observing, seeing, everything's calm. This is best to do it when everything's calm, mind still, calm heart, right? Just glance back into the observer. Ask yourself, what's there? Yeah? So now the Buddha often gives us, he often talks about it, but usually in a sort of negative way, not in a direct way. So here he's talking to his monks. He says the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. Now at that time the Buddha was educating, encouraging, firing up and inspiring the mendicants with a Dharma talk about extinguishment. So you come across that in the scriptures. The dying out, like a fire dies out. Yeah? So what's dying out, of course, is all the stuff that we're experiencing. Yeah? And those mendicants were paying attention, applying the mind, concentrating wholeheartedly, and actively listening, then understanding this matter. On this occasion, the Buddha expressed this heartfelt sentiment. There is, mendicants, that dimension where there's no earth, no water, no fire, no wind. Right, for those of you who know, those are your 4 elements. No dimension of infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, and neither perception nor non-perception. Those are the higher states of absorption. There's no this world, no other world, no moon, no sun. There, mendicants, I say, there is no coming or going or remaining. No passing away and no reappearing. Yeah? No time. Just this is the end of suffering. So he talks about it as a dimension. At dimensions, consciousness is normally, the way he describes consciousness is according to the 6 sense bases. So you have eye consciousness, ear consciousness, and mind consciousness is the 6th. There's no other, is there? All our consciousnesses are one of those 6 types. Right? So he's saying that there is another consciousness which doesn't include any of that. There's a sort of very famous one that you'll hear often quoted. So there is that which is never born, never lived, was never created, or bound by conditions. If there was not that which was never born, never lived, was never created or bound by conditions, there would be no escape from what is born, ever lived, ever created, bound by conditions. But since there is that which is never born, never lived, has never created or bound by conditions, there is an escape from what is born, lived, created, and bound by conditions. Now, the reason I'm sort of going on about this is because we live in a society that is really sort of grounding itself in science. And science takes on a certain position of being the know-all. And if it can't be proved scientifically, it doesn't actually exist. I've been listening to a series of lectures by a man called John Bevacki, and they're really worth listening to. There are 50 one-hour talks, for heaven's sake. There are 50 one-hour talks, for heaven's sake. That's a lot of talk, isn't it? And he takes us from the shamans right up to present day. And I was okay until he got to cognitive science. And I was really, really, really surprised to find that cognitive science, through the scientific method, has come to where the Buddha was. He talks about self-deception instead of delusion and stuff like that. But he is absolutely convinced that the brain is the mind, and that nibbana, what the Buddha talks about, is just some other mental state. Right? Even though he actually meditates, he teaches this meditation, this Mahasi meditation, heavens above. So I'm trying to make the case for something in us which really is transcendent of everything we experience, and you can investigate that. It's not a theory. It's not something that is pulled out of the sky and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It is through this practice that you can begin to recognize that there's something quite strange within us, even on the point of impermanence, right? When you get down to your practice, go right into an object, right? and you're looking at your breath, for instance. The breath is a good place to do it. And you're right there, you're centering in, and you get to the point where you completely absorb. So you've lost the sense of, I'm the meditator meditating. There is just the breath, right? And the background question that you've set in your mind is, am I seeing this as it really is? Because the mind's fantastic at constructing time. Okay? So you're really looking at it, and it begins to break up. It begins to go like that, right? One after the other. And what we're watching is the arising and passing away of each consciousness. Right? Now remember, a consciousness in Buddhist, in the Buddha's psychology, must have a sense base. So here the sense base is the body. People might experience this while looking at something. It just disappears and comes back. They can hear it when they can experience that arising and passing away when they're listening to something. It doesn't matter what it is. But what they're catching at that level of insight is that things are arising and passing away. Radically. There's nothing there when it's passed away. And yet, there is that which knows it. Okay? So it's a little experience like that which can come upon you quite unexpectedly. That are little openings to beginning to understand that there's something in us which is very strange. It doesn't, you cannot categorize it. Yeah? Buddha mind. Any questions? Confusions? Normally people don't speak about this, but I'm speaking about it. They keep the Buddha's teaching at that psychological level. You know, how to get over emotions, how to deal with life. But the spiritual level is the chasing and discovery of this house builder. And all that purification, all that therapy, all the purification, it happens along the way. But if you make your meditation just to get rid of all this anxiety and all that sort of stuff, and how to deal with life, then you're missing the point. So no insight can come. And that's why there's this constant effort to see these three characteristics, because that takes you to that place of knowing who or what we really are. And then finally, just to leave you with a positive thing, there's a monk called Theravada, and he wants to know where the world comes to an end. And it's a funny discourse, it's worth reading, it makes you laugh. And he goes to this deva, this god in the realms, and says, you know, where is it that everything comes to an end? And he says, I'm not so sure. He says, you want to go up a bit to the next level. So he goes up to the next level. The gods of shining light, they've got all these gods. And they say, I'm not so sure about that. You better go up to the next level, he says. Well, he gets right to the top, to the great Brahma, right, the god of all gods. And he says where does everything comes to an end? And Brahma says, I am Brahma, I am the owner, the maker of all that is good and proper, etc., etc. He goes on a bit, you see. And then the monk says, well, I didn't come to ask you that. He says, where is it that the world comes to an end? I am the Brahma. And he went on and on. And then finally he said, look, come over here a minute, come over here. So they went behind this curtain. And he said, listen, I don't know, but I don't want everybody else to know I don't know. Right? And he says, what you want to do is go back down to the Buddha and ask him. So he goes down to the Buddha and he says, Bhante, he says, where does the world come to an end? And he says, that is not, the question is not well put. The question ought to be, where does the world not find a footing? Right? Nothing to do with the destruction of the world. Right? Nothing to do with the destruction of thought, of emotions, of the body. Right? The Buddha says the only thing destroyed, completely annihilated, is greed, hatred, and delusion. So he says, once you ask that question, where the world where is it that the world can find no footing? He says there is a consciousness which is not manifest. That's the word used. What it means is there's nothing in it created by the six senses. There's nothing manifest. It is without boundary. Without boundary. Right? I mean, we are completely enmeshed in boundaries, one boundary or another. So without boundary, and in all directions, full of light. You can take that to mean light as such, or awakenedness. And he says, just this is the end of suffering. So the prognosis is very good. Yeah. There is an end to suffering, without any shadow of a doubt.